Why do we tremble at the thought of being alone, as if solitude is a dark abyss waiting to swallow us whole? In a world that glorifies constant connection, packed social calendars, buzzing phones, endless chatter, loneliness is branded a curse, a sign of failure. But what if I told you that the Buddha himself found his greatest strength in the quiet of the forest, unshackled from the noise of others? As someone who's walked the path of his teachings for decades, I've seen how society's fear of being alone blinds us to its hidden power. Let me take you on a journey, one that transforms the sting of loneliness into the sweet liberation of solitude. Now, pause for a second and chew on this. Could solitude actually be the secret door to unshakable peace? We're not talking about just hiding away from the world, sulking in a corner with a pint of ice cream, though I've been there too, trust me. No, this is about the kind of aloneness that spiritual giants like the Buddha chased after, the kind that strips away distractions and forces you to face yourself raw. Think of the hermits on mountaintops, the monks in silent caves across Tibet and India. Why did they run from crowds to find something deeper? I've sat with this question for years, poring over ancient texts and testing these truths in my own creaky, stubborn life. Solitude isn't escape, it's a deliberate plunge inward, a choice to grow where no one else can interfere. And if the Buddha could turn his back on a palace full of luxury to seek it, maybe there's something to this we're all missing. Let's rewind to the Buddha's story, because it's not just a dusty old tale, it's a mirror for every one of us wrestling with loneliness. Born as Siddhartha Gautama, a prince in ancient India around 500 BCE, he had it all. A palace dripping with gold, servants at his beck and call, a beautiful wife, a newborn son. Picture it, silk robes brushing against marble floors, the air thick with jasmine and the laughter of courtiers. Yet at 29 he looked around and saw emptiness. The pleasures he drowned in couldn't drown out the truth. Life was suffering, old age, sickness, death. He'd seen it on a rare trip outside the palace walls, a hunched old man trembling with a cane, a sick body racked with pain, a corpse carried to the pyre. That night he couldn't sleep. How could he feast while others withered? So, he made a choice that would baffle anyone in our Instagram-obsessed age. He walked away. Left the palace, the parties, the people, and stepped into the forest's silence. But don't think this was some romantic retreat with birds chirping and instant zen. Siddhartha didn't just find himself overnight. He joined ascetics, hardcore meditators who believed the body was the enemy. For 6 brutal years he starved himself, down to skin and bone, ribs poking out like a xylophone, eating a single grain of rice some days. I've read accounts in the Pali Canon, the ancient Buddhist texts, describing how he'd collapse from hunger, his breath barely a whisper. He followed 5 monks who swore by self-mortification, harsh, grueling practices meant to crush desire. They thought suffering was the path to freedom. But Siddhartha saw it wasn't working. His mind was foggy, his body breaking. How could he reach truth if he couldn't even stand? So he rejected both extremes, the palace's excess and the forest's torture. He took a middle path, nourishing himself just enough to keep going. And that's when everything shifted, but not without cost. The monks who'd been his companions turned their backs, sneering at what they saw as weakness. He was alone now, truly alone, under a sprawling Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya, with nothing but his thoughts and the rustle of leaves. Here's the kicker. Imagine everyone you've leaned on walking away, leaving you in the dirt. Would you crumble or would you rise? When those 5 monks abandoned Siddhartha, calling him a quitter for eating a modest meal offered by a village girl, he didn't beg them to stay. He didn't chase their approval. Instead, he sat in that empty forest, the weight of their judgment heavier than the hunger he'd endured. I felt echoes of this in my own life. Decades ago, when I first embraced Buddhist practice in a small American town, friends drifted off, thinking I'd gone off the deep end with my weird chants, and silent retreats. I'd sit in my tiny apartment, no TV, no radio, just the hum of my own breath, wondering if I'd made a mistake. But like Siddhartha, I learned that being deserted isn't the end, it's the beginning. For him, that solitude under the Bodhi tree wasn't loneliness, it was a crucible. No one to impress, no one to argue with, just him and the unrelenting question of why we suffer. Night after night, he wrestled with his mind, facing temptations of doubt and desire personified as Mara, the demon of illusion. Mara taunted him, "Who are you to seek enlightenment? Go back to your palace." But Siddhartha didn't flinch. He touched the earth as his witness, grounding himself in resolve. That aloneness, stripped of all crutches, became his power. And it can be yours too if you dare to sit with it. Now let's hit the heart of this journey, the moment solitude turned into awakening. Under that Bodhi tree, after days of unrelenting meditation, Siddhartha cracked open the mystery of existence. It was around 2,500 years ago, on a full moon night in May, that he became the Buddha, the awakened one. He saw the Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering, suffering has a cause, craving, suffering can end and there's a path to end it, the Eightfold Path. This wasn't just philosophy, it was a lived revelation born from solitude's clarity. I've pored over the suttas where he describes how, free from distraction, he traced the chain of cause and effect. How our attachments, our desperate clinging to people and things bind us to pain. Picture him there. A gaunt figure, cross-legged, sweat beading on his brow under the Indian heat, as memories of his past lives flashed before him, revealing the endless cycle of birth and death. No crowd cheered him on, no guru held his hand. Solitude gave him the space to see what we all dodge, that our loneliness often comes from chasing what can't last. He found the middle path, balancing between indulgence and denial, a practical way to live without being enslaved by desire or fear. I've tested this myself over the years. During a silent retreat in the Blue Ridge Mountains, cut off from family for 10 days, I faced my own clinginess, my itch to check my phone to hear a voice. By day 7, sitting on a worn cushion in a drafty cabin, I felt a shift. The silence wasn't empty, it was full of my own untapped strength. Studies back this up too. A 2017 paper from the University of Rochester found that intentional solitude can boost creativity and emotional regulation, lowering stress hormones like cortisol by up to 20% in some participants. The Buddha didn't need a lab to prove it. His enlightenment was the ultimate experiment. He showed that solitude isn't a void, it's a forge. And when I mentor younger Buddhists now, I see their eyes widen when they try it even for an hour and feel the weight lift. Loneliness stops being a monster when you stop running from it. It becomes a teacher, whispering truths no one else can. Alright, let's lighten this up a bit and make it stick with a twist. Think of loneliness as a wild horse. You can't kill it, it's got too much raw energy. But you can ride it, steer it somewhere worth going. I chuckle now at 72, thinking how I used to dread quiet evenings after my kids moved out. I'd pace my old farmhouse in Vermont, the creak of the floorboards louder than my thoughts, feeling like the world had forgotten me. Then I remembered the Buddha's example. Solitude isn't punishment, it's potential. So I started small. 15 minutes a day, no phone, no radio, just me in a rickety chair on the porch, staring at the maple trees. At first, my mind was a circus, bills, regrets, what's for dinner. But slowly, I turned that restless energy into focus. I'd set tiny goals. Today, I'll breathe and notice 5 sounds around me. Tomorrow, I'll sketch one memory that's bugging me. It's like rewiring a circuit. Science says energy can't be destroyed, only transformed, right? A 2019 study from Harvard even noted that mindfulness in solitude can reframe negative emotions, cutting anxiety scores by 15% over 8 weeks. I felt it firsthand. Those lonely nights became my workshop. I started writing letters to old friends, not out of desperation but to reconnect with purpose. I planned a small veggie garden, something to nurture beyond myself. And spiritually, I dug deeper into the Dhammapada, the Buddha's teachings, finding verses like, "Better it is to live alone. There is no fellowship with a fool." It hit me, loneliness comes from lacking purpose, not people. So transform it. Grab that wild horse and ride it toward a goal, whether it's mastering a skill or just sitting still long enough to hear your own heart. I tell my Sangha group, mostly folks from New York and London juggling jobs and stress, that 15 minutes of me time daily can be gold. One woman, Sarah, a single mom in her 30s, shared how she used it to journal after her divorce. She'd cry at first, alone in her flat, but soon those pages became her map, plans for a new career, dreams for her kid. Solitude turned her loneliness into fuel. Try it. No gadgets, no noise, just you. Scary? Sure. But I've seen it work, from my porch to Sarah's tiny desk. It's not about running from the quiet. It's about making the quiet run for you. So, here we are at the end of this road, and I hope you're seeing it clear. Solitude isn't the enemy, it's the oldest friend you haven't met yet. The Buddha turned his back on a palace and a crowd to find it, sitting alone under that Bodhi tree until he cracked open the truth of suffering and freedom. I've walked bits of that path myself, from empty nights in Vermont to guiding others through their own quiet storms, and I've seen how loneliness transforms when you give it purpose. Start small, 15 minutes a day, just you and your thoughts. No running, no hiding. Let the silence teach you what I've learned over decades. Peace isn't out there in the noise, it's in here waiting. If this resonates, if you want more stories and wisdom from this old soul, please like and subscribe. It's the nudge that keeps me sharing. And tell me, have you ever carved out a quiet moment just for yourself? What did you find in that space? Drop it in the comments. I'm eager to hear your journey.